Welcome to Game Crunch, your weekly video game podcast. My name is Mike Anastasia. With me today, we got Brandon.
Hello.
We're going to talk about games and things.
Games and things.
It's on the agenda. Mario Day. That was this week. Monster Hunter
Oh yeah.
Wilds. Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
So
Yep. Yep.
that's our to-do list this morning, evening, whatever time it is. Nobody knows. Okay. All right, let's do it. I'll talk first, I suppose, because I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Because I have some things to talk about. Yeah, so Mario Day was this week. So I threatened it last week. Well, I threatened it for a while, but now I actually did it. So yeah, so there's a bunch of stuff that was on sale Nintendo wise that I was like, I'll wait until it's like Mario Day and they sell it for $40. And guess what? The things that I wanted were on sale. So I just picked them up. So I picked up Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. And I also picked up, and I think I also threatened this one before, but I don't think I talked about it last week. Princess Peach Showtime. Whoa.
Okay.
Really nailing out the hard hitters here. Although actually all I'm really going to talk about mostly this week is going to be Princess Peach Showtime, because that's actually what I put most of the time in. So yeah. So where do I want to start with my thoughts on this game? So game came out, what was it, early last year? I want to say like Marchish time, I think is when it was. And it got okay reviews. I think like 7s and 8s, which is what I would expect. I tried the demo out. I wasn't particularly fond of it, but I was always like, well, maybe I'd try it again if I can get it for like a more reasonable price.
I heard
And
it's
here's
very, very mid.
um I
My
liked it
friend
more than
played
I
it, finished
expected
the
it to be.
entire game, and was like, "I forgot I played that." Like, it was
You
very
did?
forgettable. A friend of mine, he played it,
Oh. Mhm.
played through the entire thing. And he's like, "It's fine." And then, like at the end of the year, I was talking to him, and I was like, "Oh, what about Princess Peach? Didn't you play that game?" He's like, "I literally forgot I played that game."
Yeah, I would say that's kind of that's probably about how I would sum it up so far. Like, it's fine. I'm actually enjoying my time with it. I like what they have kind of started here, but it doesn't do anything. It definitely has some shortcomings and some things that you wish were a little bit better, and maybe like a little bit more depth would be nice, or difficulty in either of those things. But at least for what it is, I think it's a fun kind of playthrough. So basically,
Mhm.
your Peach is a platformer like Mario platformer in some ways, but it's not. It's got a lot of variety. So the basic kind of idea is Peach is going to like a play or something, and then it gets taken over by Madam Grape, which I mean that's fine. I like the name. That's fair. Um, and then you got to go through all these different plays and kind of save the world or whatever's going on in the play. Save the whatever race of creatures are having difficulty because they're being taken over, and being attacked by Madam Grape's crew. I forgot the Sour Bunch, I think is what it's called, which I like that name. That's kind of fun. But yeah, it's definitely made to be like anyone can play this game. So like it's not overly difficult. There's not a lot of like challenge difficulty there. Some of the controls are very like press A to win, but it still's kind of charming, I would say. So each different play that she's in, she has like a different role, like, and each one's kind of plays a little differently, which is nice. So you get a little bit of genre variety. Like one, she's a sword fighter, so it's kind of more like action oriented. Another one, she's a detective, so it's kind of more puzzle and clue solving. Trying to think what else. You have like a baker, like you're not a baker, it's like patisserie. Where you're decorating like cakes and stuff. So kind of reminds me more of like a Mario Party mini game in that one. You're kind of decorating cakes and trying to get like high scores and go for speed and completion. So it is a bunch of different variety. Each different thing that you have, each different outfit or kind of role that you play has at least 3 different stages that I've seen so far. And each floor has its own boss fights, which actually I've kind of found to be pretty enjoyable. So there is that. Game is not super punishing, but you do have kind of like a life meter. You can run out of hearts and lose. Each stage too has these different kind of collectibles to get through. This I would say for more of the core gamers, that was going to be more of your focus, because the platforming, that kind of elements, not going to give you any difficulty. It's kind of more of the collectible side of things is where you're going to get a little bit more challenge, because they are hidden pretty well. Well, a lot of times I'll miss one and I'll be like, no fucking clue. So there's that aspect of But also on the flip side, though, because the way the level is designed, there's no easy backtracking and there's no easy restart. So if you miss one, you have to restart the entire level over, which is a pain in the ass. So I have not been trying to collect everything yet, and I've not seen much incentive to go through and collect everything yet. I've just been going through trying to collect as much as I can. If you do get all the collectibles on the stage, you do get like an unlockable photo. They're cute, but it's not like it's anything. You're not missing anything if you don't. You also unlock things like a soundtrack and different costumes as you go through. Each stage also has like a collectible, I don't know, like outfit or ribbon to get as well, because you can kind of get dresses for Peach or like ribbons for, I think her name's Stella. Kind of go through with that. I agree with your friend. Like I said, I would say this is probably actually a pretty solid 7 to 8 game. Nothing to write home about. Nothing incredibly difficult. So not a ton of challenges there. So, but I like I said, surprisingly enjoying it, and that's even with me pretty much not liking the demo. So, but interested in kind of seeing more of what the game had to offer. And like I said, it seems to be something that's kind of just fun to muck around with. Definitely would recommend it for people who are trying to play games with like younger people. Want some need something kind of easy to play, but kind of want something with like a little bit of variety in it without being too
Yeah, that
punishing.
makes sense. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's definitely like for the younger audience.
Yeah, I agree. I think this game compared to what was it, Super Princess Peach? They're definitely different. So, but it's nice to see kind of more Peach focus, I think. I think the outfit kind of thing works well for her. And it's nice to see her in kind of more of like an action focused thing as opposed to like emotional distress. Like the last game. So
I see. I
yeah,
see.
I would say enjoyable, probably better with the Mario Day discount if you wanted to try it. But and there is a demo if you want to try that aspect too. But I do kind of like I said, I do kind of like the variety of different stages there. It kind of also reminds me of like Mario Party 2, where it's like each stage has kind of its own theme because you get some pretty wild variety. Like one, she's like a superhero with like flying powers. Another one, she's like a masked bandit who's trying to steal like treasures and like get through like security systems. Another one, she's like a cowboy. Another one, she's like a kung fu master. So
One of them, she's just
really,
Carmen
like
Sandiego. It sounds like.
some of it. I actually did have a very big like Carmen Sandiego vibe when I was playing yesterday. Although not old school Carmen Sandiego, more kind of like modern Carmen Sandiego.
I don't know if you've seen the modern Carmen Sandiego recently. They had a new game come out. It's like a puzzle game, no longer
I
like a point
saw
and
the
click game.
demo
It's kind of
for it.
weird.
Yeah,
Hmm.
it is very weird. It's because Carmen Sandiego in the last couple decades has become a good person now. So, I don't know. I think I talked about it when I watched it, but I like binge watched the Netflix Carmen Sandiego show,
Hmm.
and she actually starts out as a good guy and then turns into a bad guy by the end, which I was like, oh, that's kind of a really interesting way to do it. But then they have to like redeem her and save her, obviously. Um,
I think they should have like just let her stay a bad guy, and then that leads into the original Carmen Sandiego. That would have been
yeah,
fucking
exactly.
cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's kind of how I wanted it to end. Um, so yeah, there's that. Um, any questions on Super Princess Peach?
No.
Okay. Or not Super Princess Peach, whatever fucking Peach game I played.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's Showtime.
Yeah, Princess Peach
I
Showtime. There
remembered
you
it better than you.
go. I know.
That's saying something, you know? That kind of proves my entire point and my friends, where it's like so forgettable you don't even remember the name.
Yeah, I no, I don't think it's that bad. But like I said, it's just definitely in the grand scheme of like Mario stuff, like it doesn't really even stand out there aside from the fact that you're playing as Peach as the protagonist. I will say though, I think if you had the right team make a sequel to this game, it actually could be really cool. I think
Hmm.
that there's a lot of neat things that they do with it. I think a lot of the variety works really well. Sometimes it actually reminds me of like Sly Cooper quite a bit. So like there are definitely some
Interesting.
high notes in there. But like I said, just
Cooper's good, and that was actually kind of a difficult game in some parts.
yeah. No, I agree. And I like I said, I just kind of I feel like that in some way, kind of with the charm, the presentation, and some of the gameplay elements that they do. Sly Cooper had a lot of that kind of genre bending as well, I thought.
Hmm.
Um, and like I said, it just kind of works really well here. So I think if you had the right team that kind of was like, hey, let me kind of like refocus on this and make it more. appropriately built for like all types of gamers, I think you actually could have a pretty fun game. So, and it's
Yeah,
different enough from Mario and like the other kind of Mario stuff that it's unique. Like I think that they could go and do a sequel there without stepping on too many toes, but we'll see.
I see.
Yeah. All right. So, like I said, also other stuff that I bought, Luigi's Mansion 2. I only played like maybe like 2 stages of it, so I just really just gonna talk about it very briefly. But this will be something I'll come back to like probably next week. Um,
Okay.
but yeah, look, I would say it looks very nice, with kind of the HD upgrade. I actually like notably nicer than I recall it looking on the 3DS. So that's definitely a plus there because it seems to control well. They didn't make any like big gameplay changes. This it really was an HD upgrade. So I'm already starting to remember some of the things that annoyed me. Like the game won't shut the fuck up. Like it just keeps talking and interrupting you and talking and interrupting you and talking and interrupting you.
Mm,
And I'm like, okay. I'm like, just breathe. I'm like, I'm just gonna take this game just very slowly and just kind of, maybe like a stage here, a stage there, and just just do it over time. So we'll see. Um, but yeah, that is what that is. Also on sale now for Mario Day if you're on the fence for it. I would say if you're looking for Luigi's Mansions games to play though, 3 is definitely the better of the two. Two is the easily the worst of the three. So, um, but I would say 1 is still the best, even though like it's lacking in some ways. But I love 1. I think it is a really quality game, even though it's one of the shortest games ever. So there's that. Last thing I want to talk about Mario Day. This is just kind of like a brief aside, but I did pick up that Time magazine, like special edition, like 40th anniversary for Mario.
oh, okay. Okay, cool.
Um, so that was circulated around. It's gonna have a lot of fun facts. I really haven't had like a ton to kind of browse through it yet, but I did see, and I thought this was interesting. So, Time had some recommendations of Mario games that they really liked, but they also had some recommendations of they had four kind of core Mario games that they were like, don't bother playing.
Oh,
Um, yeah. Can you guess which ones they are?
hmm.
I feel like one of them is very guessable.
Is Sunshine on the list? Don't
Oh
bother.
yes. Oh
Okay.
yes. And that one I was like, redemption. I was like, yes. Um
Damn.
yeah, they're basically like, it's
Damn.
just island flavored and it's got some issues. They're like, don't bother. They're
Damn.
like they're like spend your time somewhere else. Yeah, that one was there. Although that one's not the one I thought would be like super predictable, like super guessable. Um
A Mario game that would be super guessable to avoid? I don't
yes.
know, like Hotel Mario? That's easy.
Nope,
But
core
like
Mario game. It's
core Mario
platformer.
game. Okay, core
Mhm.
platform Mario game.
Yep.
Uh damn, why am I coming up like with nothing? Hold on, hold on.
I'll give you a clue. Two of them were from the same generation, and the last one was on a portable system.
Oh no. Is it one of the Game Boy Marios?
Nope,
Oh, wow, okay. Oh, Mario 2 probably.
that's one of them. And the
Okay.
other, same generation, so that should be a huge tip off.
uh wait, the original Mario? Really?
Nope, nope.
Oh,
And obviously, it's not Mario 3.
yeah. What other Mario was on NES? Why can't I think?
Well, it was. I mean, to be fair, you could get score points for just saying Mario Brothers 2 twice. It's
Oh.
both versions of
Oh,
Mario Brothers
oh,
2.
the one that's also on Game Boy Advance.
Nope,
Oh.
Mario 2 and Mario 2.
Oh,
But
Lost Levels. Oh, I get it. Okay.
mhm. Yeah. Mhm.
Okay. But
Yeah.
what was the
'Cause
other one?
last levels is like that's the one I was saying was super obvious.
Oh,
Like
okay,
that
okay.
one is that
Lost
one's
Levels. Lost
virtually
Levels.
unplayable for anyone who's not really into Mario.
I thought that was
Um
fun.
it
It's
could be
hard,
fun if you
but
like a
like,
challenge. But like you can't like a lot of Mario games you can be like, hey,
hmm
random person, come play this with me. Lost levels, it's too much. Like that
hmm
one's a lot. Because you could play Mario 1 pretty easily, but just the difficulty uptick
I
from
mean,
1
I
to
used to
Lost
play
levels
like
is huge.
I want to be the guy and Kaizo Mario for fun. So like, I guess that's why I like Lost
I
Levels.
mean, yeah, for you, probably fine. For most people, no. Even for me, like there's a lot of things that I don't like about that game. Like I'll play it on like if I'm really in the mood to play it, like I'll play it with like on Mario All Stars because at least
hmm
you can save it level to level.
hmm
Um but like I really don't find it to be enjoyable to play it.
Oh, I
Like
never played the original. I didn't know you couldn't. Okay, well that makes more sense.
yeah. Mhm. Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah, no, it's different. And the other thing is too, like, there's some weird thing, like, if you want to get to the, like, if you want to see the last levels of the game, you actually can't warp. Fun fact.
Mm.
Like, because if you warp, then you don't get to the last world. Yeah,
Well,
so
I don't
there's that.
remember the last world, so I guess I never finished it. But
Yeah, you
that's
might
nothing new.
not. Yeah. Any guesses on the last one? Last of the four games?
Um, is it on the Wii U?
Nope, I told you it's handheld.
Oh, handheld. Sorry, I thought
And
you were going
you
with.
already asked about Game Boy, so it's not Game Boy. So I really should just
Oh,
say if
is
you like.
it? Oh, is it Mario 64 on the DS?
No, that is
Oh,
actually an honorable mention, I would say. They didn't mention it, but that is a good thought. I didn't think about that one.
okay. Is it on? Well, it's is it on DS?
Yep.
Oh, is it New Super Mario Brothers?
Yeah, that was the one.
Okay.
And that one they
Yeah,
were just basically like
it's
it's boring. Yeah.
all the ones that came after it improved upon it so much so that it doesn't even matter. Like that's where I would go with it instead of just saying it's boring.
Yeah.
Like,
They're just like not a lot of depth, not really a lot in terms of like
mhm.
new power-ups or anything. If you remember too, that game was very linear. Like it was not didn't have like a lot of branching paths or anything.
It did have
Yeah.
two though. I remember because I
Yes, because
found one
World
by mistake and I was
3
like, "What?"
and yeah, I think World 3 and World I think it was World 3 and World 5 were only accessible by warps, I
Yep,
wanna say.
yep,
And
yep,
you
yep.
had to use,
One
like,
of
the mini
those.
mushrooms to get there, which was
Yep,
obnoxious.
you had to shrink down and go underneath the little. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, that was that. So, otherwise, they had a list of, like, Mario games to play, and most Mario
Like
games were on
what?
there.
Okay, I was gonna say like, what was their like number one Mario game to play, or did they not have like it in like numbers or anything?
They didn't rank them. They were just kinda like, "Hey, notable ones." And it was, like, Mario 1, Mario 3, Mario Galaxy, like, all the ones that you would have guessed. So, Mario Odyssey,
Hmm.
uh, like, a lot of those things. I don't think any of the handheld ones were on there, if I recall, um, unless you count, like, this Mario Odyssey because of the Switch, but, yeah, no, it was really just kind of a nice kind of, variety there. So, um, yeah, it was interesting special. Like it looks like they talk a lot about like the different history, kind of like building the games, and they talk about the movies and different characters and different
That's pretty
spin-offs.
cool. Did they talk about the original movie?
Yes, they did.
Oh, okay.
Hmm. Yeah,
Anything to note from that?
I just kind of read like the last part of it where they were
Hmm.
talking about how John Leguizamo was basically saying like kind of like made a comment. Someone it sounded like someone was asking about some comments that were made about his Mario Brother movie, um,
Hmm.
in context with a new one coming out, and he was basically like, "Hey, there's a time and place for this. It might not have been the best, but it's like kind of what it is." So, um, it was cute. I'll have to read a little bit more. I'll probably have some more to share from it. So later, I didn't have, like I said, I didn't have a full chance to kind of look through everything. Just kind of saw all the different kind of bits and pieces that they had in there, and it seemed like it really, like I said, covered everything from the video games to the arcade machines to the movies to the games. It looked like it had some interview stuff with like Miyamoto and everything in there too. So, yeah, just kind of like a nice little like collector's thing for people who kind of want a little bit of Mario history for the 40th anniversary. So, be really interesting to see if Nintendo's going to do anything for it this year.
Hmm.
But um, I assume it will probably be celebrated by default with the Switch 2 coming out. So,
Yeah. You think it'll launch for the Mario game other than Mario Kart?
mm, depends on your definition of launch. I don't think day one. I think day one's going to be Mario Kart.
Hmm.
I think there will be a new Mario game in the launch window. Like I think it'll
Do
be
you
by
think
the
there'll
end
be
of the
one out
year.
by the end? Okay, all right then.
Hmm. Yeah, I think there'll be a proper one out by the end of the year, but I think it will launch with Mario Kart. That's my thought. Although
I see.
they could flip it around, but I feel like if they were going to flip it around, well, I don't know.
Mario Kart's always been consistently a really good seller for like end of the year, like Christmas. So like maybe, but then again, maybe they would want to release it first, and then they can make it a pack-in title when they get more Switches twos in at the end of the year.
Yeah,
You
it could
know
be
what I'm
something like
saying?
that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I also my kind of thought was, well, first it's like, of course they'll have it launched. They showed it off, kind of with the thing for the system. But I was also like, but that game doesn't need any explaining. Like you can show that on a screen, and you'll be like, oh, it's Mario Kart. Like what else is there to, you're not gonna like pick through it
I
and try
don't
to
know,
figure
man.
anything
What did
out.
they do to my boy Donkey Kong?
Yeah, but if they just showed like a new Mario game where it's like like, 20 seconds of him running around and doing stuff and no fucking clue and no announcements for 2 months. They know, like, I feel like that would have been like hard to kind of go radio silent for 2 months, but with
I think
Mario
that would
Kart,
be
you can just be like,
fucking cool.
I mean, they could. I mean, I, I don't know. We'll see. But my
The
thought is
build
that
up
they're
would have
going to
been
go with
awesome.
huh?
The build up would have been awesome.
No, it would have been annoying because people would have been talking about it every like 3 weeks, and everyone on 4chan would have been like, "Oh, my uncle from Nintendo says that Mario is going to do this and that." Yeah, I don't know. I like it when Nintendo keeps things a little bit closer to announcements, like in release, so there's not
Mhm.
all this like stupid speculation. There's really not a lot to speculate on Mario Kart. Like it's a racing game, so you show it out there and be like, oh, like most of the talk we've had is like, oh, what are they going to do with the designs? And, maybe there's going to be 24 players or what could be the new gimmick, but it's not going to be like with Mario. And
Mhm.
Mario's going to be a big deal. And they're going to spend a lot of time on it, especially with it being the anniversary, I'm sure. So we'll see. I'm curious. I wish they would kind of do. I was thinking about it the other day. I'm like, it'd be fun if they did like a proper like a Mario game that's actually set in like the Mushroom Kingdom, like kind of like Mario World, but more like 3D. Um, but I don't even really know what that means. But that's what I want.
Okay.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, Other than that, though, I think that's all I have to talk about right now. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. You want to talk about your stuff?
Yeah, I want to talk about Monster Hunter.
Okay.
I played Monster Hunter Wilds a
Yeah.
lot.
Mm-hmm.
I mentioned that I started it, or I was going to start it last week, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
And was it last week that you made a guess of how many hours I would have this week? I don't remember.
No, the only hours I remember guessing last week was Monster Hunter, or not Monster Hunter, Hello Kitty.
Oh, Hello Kitty ended at 18 hours and 18.1 hours.
Oh, so you
So
didn't play
close.
a single second since last time.
No, but guess what?
Hmm.
Monster Hunter is at 17.8.
Oh.
This game is in fucking incredible.
Mhm.
This game is so good. This is the perfect placement for someone that has not played a Monster Hunter game to come in. It is very newbie friendly, but also it is really cool just to look at, and the way the game is presented is a lot of fun. They kind of handhold you a lot, similar to something you would see in like a PlayStation game where they like walk and talk to explain things to you, and you're just kind of stuck there walking and talking. Your God of Wars, your Last of Us, that sort of deal. But that happens while you're riding on Monsterback and like looking around at the plains and the different areas and learning the biomes and whatnot. It's
Mhm.
very cool the way that it is done. If you are an old school Monster Hunter fan, I do think you're going to find a lot to be desired there, because it is very handholdy in the first few hours. And even after that, it could still be handholdy somewhat. However, this game's just fucking cool. It's so cool. It's so good. It's really so good. This is on PC,
Mhm.
one of the worst performing games I've played since The Last of Us Part 1. And it's not as bad as The Last of Us Part 1, but it is very bad performance wise.
Okay.
And it's borderline unacceptable in some cases. However, the game's just so fucking good that I keep playing it anyway.
Mhm.
It's really a lot of fun. Let me break down a few of the things that have made it different from past Monster Hunters. There is a focus mode now
Uh-huh.
where you can hold left trigger, and when holding left trigger, if you've done a significant amount of damage, you can see weak points on monsters. And then if you use right bumper, you will automatically do an attack which will target said weak points, and that can allow you to break off parts of monsters easier so that you can get the pieces that you need.
Mhm.
So, say for instance, I need to break off the tail. If I do a lot of damage to the tail and inflict a weak point on it, I can then continuously do that to attack the weak point to get the tail to break off, and that sort of deal. And that's a good way of farming monster tails if you need them for like a set of armor or what have you. Um, the story is actually surprisingly good, but it's also very basic. But it's probably the like most of a story thing we've had in Monster Hunter in a very very long time. Probably ever, honestly, ever in mainline Monster Hunter. And I mean, it's fine. It's serviceable. It's good. It's not great. It's not nothing groundbreaking or anything like that. But they're making an effort, and although it can be a bit too chatty with the cutscenes and everything, um, it does the job. and it's totally fine. And I think it will win over the people that like those elements of games a lot.
Mhm.
So cool. Um, moving on from that, the ways that you hunt monsters in this game are like really cool. Because, like, for instance, there's one part, and I'll give you like a very minor spoiler, where this furnace isn't lighting the way it should, and someone finds a way to light the furnace, and it's supposed to be like a ritual like thing for a festival this group of people are going to have and whatnot, and the furnace needs to be lit, but someone does it a way that it really shouldn't have been done, and it ends up bringing up this like leviathan squid monster thing that you then have to fight. But the cool part is, a lot of times when you initiate these fights, you then go out into the wild to fight said monster. This monster is just down the road from you in the actual like city that you're in. So you fight monsters sometimes like in and around the city place where the base camps are, which makes it feel a lot more organic and like it flows even better, because you can like take a left turn and then damn, you're into fighting a monster immediately. It like just go down a back alley in this one part of the city and then bam, there's monsters for you to fight. And I really like that element of it because it makes everything feel so much more natural. Like, yes, there are still sectioned off parts and everything. They're not loading screens, but like little quadrants where certain monsters spawn and where certain monsters will appear and whatnot. But it flows so much better in this game that it feels more natural for the monsters to be there, and they have a reason to be there. And the fact that you could just like make a left while walking through the base camp city and then end up where a bunch of monsters are that you have to fight, or like where some like gigantic god monster is, really makes it feel like they are unsafe. Like the monsters can come into the city, they can wreck the base camp, and that is something that can be done by these monsters. And that kind of also adds to it. There are base camps that you could set up out in the wilderness when you go out into the like super open world area, and if you set up those base camps but like monsters end up roaming around those plains, they can destroy your base camp and you'll have to rebuild it. And it makes everything just feel more natural, so to speak, and it makes the game feel more alive as well, like it's actually like a living breathing thing. Because with past Monster Hunters, which I really like past Monster Hunters, but with past Monster Hunters, you're definitely like in a spawn zone where you select a monster you're going to go hunt, and then you go through a door, and then you're taken to a different spawn zone area that's completely separate from the base camp that you were just at. And this game just says, no, fuck that. They're like right outside your base. Get used to it. And I like that element because it does make it feel like there's more danger there, and it makes it feel more alive. Super cool. Like I said, performance on PC is absolute dog shit, but this is so fun and so good of a game that I've just continued pushing through it the entire time because it is so enjoyable. There are new little things called like secrets. This is the name of an animal, not actually saying the word secrets. It's like there's a K in there, the way it's spelt. And there are these like things that you can write on the back of them. They're kind of like dogs, but not. And on these secrets, you can perform an action that allows you to like dismount, and like then instantly attack the monster that you're fighting. Super cool. You can also use them to reposition. You can like whistle for them to come pick you up, and when they pick you up, you can then get away from the monster you're fighting for a second and like sharpen your weapon or drink a healing potion. And that's a thing that you can do just on a whim. Awesome. It works really well. It makes the flow of combat feel very nice and very fast paced. And yeah, it's just really enjoyable playing this game. Like from top to bottom, this game's fucking excellent. It's so good. So
Yeah, I've heard really good things so far.
Dude, this game sold like 8 million copies in a week. That's unheard of for Monster Hunter.
It also helped Steam break new user records, so too.
Yeah, it's insane.
Mhm.
So I highly recommend this game. If you're playing on console, I even more recommend this game. But if you don't mind doing a little bit of tinkering here or there, or waiting for some patches, or you're going to wait anyway until there's like an update down the road, or till the inevitable Game of the Year edition or whatever the fuck comes out. I'm not saying this game is going to be Game of the Year, but you know how they like to say, oh, Game of the Year edition of games that didn't win Game of the Year, and then they just put them out, and then they have like all the DLC combined, and that's essentially what they're calling the Game of the Year edition. That'll probably happen with this game at some point. This game's excellent, and I definitely see them like having an expansion for it in the future. And
Oh, they
yeah,
inevitably will.
oh, absolutely, absolutely. Or I guess complete edition, maybe they'll call it. Whatever, it doesn't matter. But my point is, if you want to play now and don't mind doing some tinkering with settings and this, that, and the other, then get it on PC. If you want to wait, you probably should right now if you don't feel like doing that. But if you have a console and you want to play it, definitely get this now. This game is excellent. Like, it's just so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where I'm at. That's what I spent most of my time playing, and that is also what's made me decide to rebuild my computer.
Very fair.
Because
All
I just see a lot of games not being optimized. So fuck you, I'm gonna brute force it.
right.
But it's so good. I really cannot sing the praises of this game enough. It is very good.
But
I do
apparently,
wanna,
in terms of time played, not as good as Hello Kitty Island Adventure.
to be fair, Hello Kitty Island Adventure plays like Animal Crossing, so you kind of have to check in every single day. So that's why I had so many hours on that in the week, because I would check in every single day and do the stuff, and then check out. And I did that for like a week straight. I spent a lot of time trying to get it running in an acceptable format, and since then I've just been playing it.
Okay, yeah, that's fair. All right.
Also, like every hunt is like 30 minutes, so it takes a lot out of you after like a few hunts, you know.
But
it's just so fun to play. It's so fun.
I don't know. When was the last? I did see the last Switch one was on sale. I thought about picking that one up because I heard that one was good too.
I have Rise also. That game's also very good. That one's a lot more fast paced, but that one again is more like I said, quadrant focused, where it's like you go and set everything up in the base camp, then you leave and you go to like different areas based on where the monsters are located. That's a way more like traditional sort of Monster Hunter, and I do like that game a lot as well. That game's good.
Yeah, that's one thing I think Capcom has done well with this series is they've been able to kind of differentiate a bunch of the different kind of, like, I feel like there's like 2, maybe 3 kind of lines of Monster Hunter that
there is. You got stories, wild / world, and then the main line. That's the way I see it. Like Wilds and World is a spinoff, and Stories is a spinoff. Wilds and World is more of the casual friendly and much easier to get into, but also kind of much more cinematic, so to speak, Monster Hunter games. And then, Rise, Generations Ultimate, stuff like that. That's the much more, mainline Monster Hunter games. Which Generations Ultimate is excellent. I saw that it's only $40 on the Switch now, and that is a fucking steal. I also saw that it was recently on sale for $10. If that shit goes on sale, you should fucking buy that. That shit's good.
Which one?
Generations Ultimate on Switch.
Oh, I don't think I've seen. I'm sure it has. I know I saw Rise. I think Rise and the expansion was just on sale, or just went on sale again for like $20.
Worth it.
Yeah, I keep thinking about it. One of these days, I'm sure I will. All right. What else? Anything else?
I watched a pay-per-view, but I don't think you want to hear me gush about wrestling. But it was really, really good.
And then again.
If I ever say I watched a pay-per-view, it's always going to be wrestling. That's just what
else is pay-per-views anymore?
Boxing. Like sometimes there's like special like music concert things. Like I know Ghost did a pay-per-view. The band Ghost, where they do like a theatrical performance for their albums and stuff, and also like tell a story. And I know they've done pay-per-views and stuff like that before, but granted, they like do the pay-per-view on their own site. And even when I'm like buying wrestling pay-per-views, I'm buying them on like Triller, which is a specific like sports pay-per-view site. So I'm not actually like paying my cable or satellite provider. I'm literally buying it online and then watching it through like a smart app. So But yeah, I watched a really good pay-per-view. There were 4 really good matches back to back. There was one that was absolutely insane between 2 women, and like the storyline between them is insane. Like one of them pretended to be like friends with this person, and because she was her mentor and everything, and it went this really weird route where she ended up betraying her mentor, but her mentor became like obsessed with like Hollywood movies and like pretending like they were like an old Hollywood star, so much so that like the character that this wrestler was playing, when she would come out, it would be Timeless and then her name, which is Tony Storm. And whenever she would appear, she would be dressed like, you know, an old timey actress, but they had also like changed the camera to like black and white and like slow down the speed of the camera shutter to like make it look like an old timey movie when she came out. It was fucking cool. That was really cool. And then she ended up fighting the person that that like looked up to her and everything, and that person ended up winning at one point. And then she took the women's belt, and after she took the women's belt, she the Timeless Tony Storm ended up having fake amnesia, where she tried to trick this person into thinking that she didn't remember anything after the horrible wrestling match they had together. When I say wrestling match, it devolved to like literally taking her shoe off and impaling her in the head with the heel of her shoe and just gushing blood, that sort of deal. So it was more like a murder scene. And they had a back and forth, and then the third match, which they called the Hollywood ending, which was just anything goes whatsoever, was fucking insane, to the point where like at one point they took tape that was like the adhesive was on the outside instead of the inside, and they wrapped it around their knuckles and shoved their hands into a bucket of broken glass, and then had like literally taped to their knuckles broken glass bottles, where they like punched each other in the fucking face with broken glass bottles and like just split their heads all open, and they were just like gushing. It was a crazy fucking match. There was a point where there was a taser pulled out. It was insane. The entire thing was insane. And the thing about the wrestling that I watch is, although still when it comes to wrestling, everything is predetermined, these people do this thing that's known as blading, which is where they won't actually get hit by the glass, but they're able to make it look like, you know, they're being hit. They're able to make it look really good, and sometimes they will, if it's like an arm or like this or that and the other, you know, like something smaller. But they'll blade themselves, which is where like when people aren't looking or when they've been knocked down, they'll take a razor blade and they'll actually like slit their forehead open, so like it's actual blood that's coming out. It's not like fake shit. And so at least in that respect, the blood is real, and so is the like violence and that sort of shit. And it's fucking nuts what these two people did to each other. And the entire match was like 20 minutes of just two people hating the fuck out of each other and going completely crazy. It was really good.
Yeah.
And then immediately after that, they had a cage match where two people fought in a cage. Different match. Two people fought in a cage, and it started with them standing on top of the cage across from each other, just like flexing and being like, I'm gonna fucking kill you, essentially. And that cage match was nuts. There was like barbed wire baseball bats, and there was fucking all this crazy shit going on. It was really good. The whole pay-per-view was really, really fucking good. So top to bottom, except for the ending. The ending sucked dick, but that's fine. That tends to happen a lot of the time. Pay-per-views can't really land the finish, and they chose like the worst match to go on last. After all the crazy matches that had just happened, it was just kind of like, all right, whatever. But yeah, just in general, really good pay-per-view. It was called AEW Revolution, and pretty much every single match except for the last match was good, and is like an easy like 9 out of 10. Would have been 10 out of 10 if it wasn't for the last match, which was just absolutely a snore fest. It was very boring, and it was just badly executed the entire time. But yeah, it had a lot of my favorite wrestlers in it. It had like Kenny Omega, Takeshita, it had Will Ospreay, Tony Storm, as I already mentioned, Swerve Strickland. I fucking love Swerve Strickland. He's so good. And a lot of them had really, really, really good matches. So that was awesome. Yeah. So like I kind of explained the Hollywood ending match, which was the craziest match that they had on the entire show. But like there were other matches that had storylines that made a lot more sense and that were more grounded, like Swerve, who I said I really, really enjoy. His storyline was essentially his manager, whose name is Nana, who he has like this. He's been in wrestling for a long time, so he's known as like Prince Nana, and he has this robe that he has like passed on to people that he deems worthy. And Swerve's opponent basically assaulted Nana and took the robe and pretty much spit all over his heritage and says, I don't give a shit. I am the one that's worthy. You know, I'm going to take this. I'm going to prove that I'm the one that deserves to wear it, and I don't give a shit what you say. And so Swerve was fighting to kind of help his manager get back to where he needed to be and like to reclaim his heritage and that sort of deal. You know, give the respect to his heritage that it deserved, whereas the other wrestler that stole that from him was being a gigantic piece of shit. And their match was really fucking good because it was Swerve Strickland versus Ricochet, and I like both of those people. And Swerve is a crazy ass motherfucker. I fucking love Swerve Strickland, and their fight was really, really good. It was a much more normal wrestling match, obviously, than the Hollywood ending, but its story meant something because you know it was a case of like, is Prince Nana, if Swerve loses, is he going to stop being his manager, and is he going to quit wrestling altogether because his heritage was so besmirched and so disrespected, and the person who he was managering, I guess, the person who he was, the wrestler Swerve, who he was the manager of, like if he wouldn't have been able to do it, like what would happen then to their friendship and this, that, and the other. It was a very good storyline. It was a very normal storyline as opposed to several of the others. But it was really fun, top to bottom, and both those wrestlers, Ricochet and Swerve Strickland, are fucking incredible. So it was fun watching them wrestle, and it was really good. And also, whoever ended up winning, they also, to like sweeten the pot, they are going to be given the chance to win the world title next. So it was also for number one contender to the world championship. So Swerve won. I'm spoiling that because Swerve's house. And it was really fun. It was really fun to watch. It was really enjoyable, the whole entire pay-per-view, which was like fucking 5 hours long. I got my money's worth out of it. You know?
Sounds like.
So yeah, I really enjoyed it. That's pretty much what I did. So 17 hours of Monster Hunter and 5 hours of wrestling.
Okay. Very nice. Do you have any news you want to talk about?
I don't know if I've seen any news. Have you?
I just had some quick blurbs. I don't even think, I'm just gonna say them. I don't think there's any too much to talk about them.
Mm-hmm.
There's a new Katamari Damacy
Oh
game. It's gonna be Apple Arcade exclusive.
no.
I know exactly, which is why not even worth writing down. It's called Katamari Damacy Rolling Live. So you got that one.
No.
BlizzCon is skipping this year, but it will return next year.
Is
So,
there a trailer for it?
let me see. Not at least in the article that I'm looking at.
Yeah, there's no. Also, this is the first new game in 8 years.
Yep,
Damn, this better come to something other than fucking Apple Arcade, or I'm pissed.
it
That
probably will. A lot of stuff usually will start there and come on to something else.
Katamari is what I think. That's where Hello Kitty Island Adventure came from. Katamari is one of my favorite, like just series in general. Oh, there's some pictures on the Apple Arcade right now.
Yeah,
Let's see.
pictures, but I didn't see any video.
Yeah, I don't see any either.
Let's see. Other things, Square Enix is celebrating Chrono Trigger anniversary with new projects. So
Okay. What does that mean?
I don't know. They're doing something.
Damn
They're
it.
not even clear. So they said to mark the anniversary, the developer will launch various projects throughout the next year, but they didn't say what those projects are. So could be a game, could be a remake, could be an anime, could be an article talking about how much they love Chrono Trigger. Nobody fucking knows. So
Could be an article where they're just like, "Yeah, we made Chrono Trigger. Fuck off."
Yeah, basically, yeah. Nobody knows, but at least they remembered its anniversary, so that's at least a step in the right direction. So, and that game is due for like a new proper like next gen remaster of some sort. So
Yeah,
that might be
I
something
think,
nice.
but I think if like that game, right, had another like next, I think it would be like the team that made Final Fantasy VII remake Rebirth that would probably take it on, and it would be like some big drawn out project that would last a long time. That's my take.
No, it doesn't need anything like that. Like a
I know,
2D,
but I
3D
feel
game
like
would be
that,
nice.
that is what they would do because they know they can make the most money off of it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm, I don't know. I don't think as much
I
as
feel like when it
people.
comes to like Square Enix, the two things I think of first are Final Fantasy VII and Chrono Trigger. So I feel like that's the way they would approach this. They'd be like, "Hey, this is a game that's loved as much as Final Fantasy VII is. Let's milk the shit out of it," because that's what Square Enix does.
Well, no. So you say those are the first two things that you think of, but they're definitely not the first two things that most people think of. Because I would say probably the alternative Final Fantasy would be Dragon Quest, obviously.
I feel like the Western audience of Dragon Quest didn't show up until like 2018, 2019.
Yeah,
I feel
but
like
there's
we're
still
very, very far behind in the popularity of Dragon Quest for that to be a thing.
compared
That's
to
the game
Japan,
that's
but
going to
it's still
continue getting the like 2D, 3D remakes. I feel like Chrono Trigger is going to get the Final Fantasy VII treatment.
no. I would be shocked. I don't think because Chrono Trigger is always one of those games that they're like we could give two fucks about, but every once in a while they throw a bone. I mean, when was the last time they did anything for it? Was the DS? And then I mean, I guess they did Chrono Cross, which was not a. Which, if there's anything that should give you evidence of how little they care about this franchise, it should be the Chrono Cross re-release from like what 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
where they were just kind of like, here's a half-assed remaster.
I think they're gonna do something big for it.
I think the best you'll get is going to be a 2D 3D remake. I think that I think that's the most optimistic. That's the most optimistic I'm willing to be, I guess. As much as it would be nice if they did some grand thing, I don't think they would risk it. The game never sold
Oh, I
that
think the
well.
thing to understand is like it's not so much about me being optimistic, it's me realizing how greedy Square Enix is and how much they know they can milk their fans. That's my take. Not necessarily because I think they're doing it out of the goodness of their heart. I think they'll make a Final Fantasy like remake style version of Chrono Trigger just so they can milk the fuck out of the fans, make a lot of figurines, make a lot of money off the figurines, make a lot of money off the game, make a lot of money off of the multiple things that they'll have where they release it on multiple things because they're going to be doing all platforms now because they stated that them releasing games just on PS5 was a bad idea essentially. I feel like Square Enix is synonymous with greed and knowing how to milk their customers. I think that it might happen.
So, according to Wikipedia,
Hmm.
the Chrono Trigger
Uh-huh.
has sold only about 3.5 million copies
Yep.
in its various incarnations
Yep.
total.
Yep.
So there's no way that they're gonna go wild
It
with
has
this.
only sold that many copies because they've released it in 3 different places, 4 places if you count Steam. They've released it.
Super
Well, I
Nintendo,
guess four.
PlayStation, Nintendo
Hmm.
DS,
Hmm.
iOS, Android, Windows, and Apple TV.
All right.
According to Wikipedia.
What you need to understand about iOS is it's dog shit. The iOS version is absolute dog shit.
Yeah, but you keep
Now
giving
that
me
we got
more
the way,
reasons to think
no,
that they're
no, no,
not
no,
gonna do
no,
anything
no,
for
no, no.
this.
What you need to understand, right? Right. Here's the thing. Chrono Trigger is a absolute classic, darling, 10 out of 10. Pretty much every RPG fan agrees, and they all played it via emulation. They did
Yeah.
not spend money on it.
And also, Brandon, you do need to remember that this game sold less in what 20, 30 years
Hmm.
than that Tomb Raider game that
Hmm.
sold whatever and they thought it was a failure.
Correct.
So, like I said, I don't if they do anything like better than like a basic remaster, I would be shocked. The money, like I said, they're like you're right. They're a very greedy company, but they're also very like they're very focused on how like returns, and they're
They've
not going to
done
go.
really bad releases on iOS, on Steam,
Yeah,
and
but those
then
don't
they've
take
just
a lot of
only
money.
released it on exactly. They've only released it on. That's why they haven't made a lot of money. What they would make is fucking buku bucks if they do what I'm saying, and I'm pretty sure that they already plan on doing it in some way, shape, or form. Maybe they won't split it up into three. Maybe it'll be a full like game, which would be crazy, and then they'll just coast off the other sales, like the
I mean,
merchandise sales.
the
But
DS version, the DS was one of the best-selling platforms of all time,
yep,
and the game was re-released there, like with
hmm
actually like some new content,
you're
and it
correct.
didn't even break 1 million sales.
You're right. And you know what? I'm gonna say this right now. I feel like, and this is my take, right?
Hmm.
I feel like more people have been willing to accept turn-based RPGs and have gotten really big into turn-based RPGs and they've sold really well only since Persona 4 released. I think that the cutoff for when turn-based RPGs got relevant again is also the same cutoff that, and I'm not talking about the PS2 version of Persona 4. I mean Golden. I think that the cutoff for when turn-based RPGs got relevant again and people started buying them like out the fucking wazoo
Hmm.
and playing them out the wazoo is after the last major release that we had of Chrono Trigger by 2 generations. I think it missed its mark multiple times, both on the Super Nintendo, the PlayStation 1, and when it released on the DS. I think the problem and the reason why those don't sell well is because like that was not the time for JRPGs. The JRPG time has been rebirthed with things like Metaphor, Persona 5, this, that, and the other. You see these games sell very, very well now. You see Persona 3 sell very, very well. You see Dragon Quest, for instance, which just had a resurgence in the West in like 2019, 2018. You see that shit sells very, very well. 2016, obviously, with the original PlayStation 4 release of Dragon Quest 10. I think it was 10. Was it 10? It doesn't matter. 12, 11. What the fuck was the one that released
11
on
was
PS4?
here. 10
There,
was
yeah, 11, the one that released here.
hmm.
That got multiple releases and sold multiple across multiple consoles. And then you've got the Octopath trilogy, not trilogy, the Octopath series, and then the games that have come along with that. Those have all sold really well. I think turn-based RPGs are more accepted now than they have ever been, and that is the reason why that would happen because people are interested in them. I don't think they sold very well on the DS, and I don't think they sold very well on the PlayStation 1, and I don't think they sold very well outside of Final Fantasies, obviously, on those consoles because of the fact that it was still very much a niche thing, whereas it's become more accepted now with the release of games that like do it really well, such as your Personas, such as your Octopath Travelers and shit like that. And people are willing to accept that again. If you look anywhere in the fucking what's the word I'm looking for? The like collectors community or anything that is Chrono Trigger is always sought after by people that want to play those games. It is
It's a
always a game
bad
that is
game.
speed run. Huh?
Doesn't mean it's a bad game.
I'm
I'm
not
just
saying it's a
saying
bad game.
I
I'm saying it didn't sell not because it isn't good and not because people don't want it, but because of the fact that they sold it back in the day when people weren't it was ahead of its time. That's what I'm trying to say, essentially. And
yeah,
now
ahead of
you
its
look at
time
people
here,
chomping at the
but
bits,
not in
essentially
Japan.
trying to get a
Japan's
hold
never
of
had
it.
like a downturn in RPGs, have they? Like the
Uh,
game's never even sold well there.
no, they haven't. But you know what? That proves my point even more because like Final Fantasy VII Remake Remaster was made specifically for the Western community. That's why I think they would do the same thing to Chrono Trigger.
No, I think you are crazy on this, but we'll see. We'll see what they have to do. So, like I said, I Square Enix, I think of any company, especially lately, is very money focused, and I
hmm
cannot see them dropping Final Fantasy money on a series that has not broken 3.5 million over multiple system releases over the course of 30 years.
I think I'm right, and
Hey,
I
we'll
think
see.
you're underestimating how much people care about it. but they don't care enough to buy the fucking shitty Apple releases or the garbage versions that were put on PC.
Yeah, but the DS version was good. That didn't even break 1 million.
The DS version was ahead of its time. It was not time for that game yet, and now it is. That is my point. You see people chomping at the bits trying to get copies of the DS versions now. You see people fighting at fucking collector things, not because they want to, resell it or this, that, and the other. There are people that are always talking about how much they want to play that game. They want to play the DS version. They want to play the Super Nintendo version. That game is constantly going up in price because of how sought after it is. You don't think that Square Enix would look at that and be like, well, shit, we need to make a new one and then get all these people's money instead of letting these collectors be able to make money off of our product? It's literally what's going to happen. I'm calling it now. It's one of the highest rated JRPGs, and it's one of the most sought after items when it comes to retro gaming. It's going to happen.
Like I said, I think they'll do something, but I think expecting it to get the Final Fantasy like 7 treatment, I think that's too far. Like I said, the Dragon Quest like 1, 2, 3 like treatment, sure, totally see that. But like I said, I cannot see them dumping that much money into Chrono Trigger when it can. Like, think about it. They could have done that same thing with Dragon Quest, and they chose to go that way. And that is a proven franchise that has definitely made the sales to justify it, and they didn't even go that far with it.
Let me ask you a question.
Sure.
Why would they do that with Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 when they're doing it with Dragon Quest 11 and 12?
They're remaking Dragon Quest 11 and 12 in
No. Dragon Quest 11 and 12 was done in the 3D open world version. That's the way that game worked. That's the way those games work. Why would they remake Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 to compete with a game that they're already selling? They wouldn't. That's the reason why it wasn't made that way.
Then why would they do the same thing with Chrono Trigger?
Because it's not there. It's not on the shelves. It's not on the shelves. It's not something you're buying. It's not something that's selling because of the fact that it's not modernized. And that people that want it, because they played the original, can't get it because it's become such a fucking collector's item. And the versions that they released, which were iOS versions, didn't go over well because they weren't good.
How's the Steam version?
Oh, it's bad. Well, I mean, it's fine after some modding and everything, but like, it's essentially the iOS version with some tweaks and stuff. I think that you're underestimating how much Square Enix likes money and how much they know that this would sell.
No, I think you're underestimating how much Square Enix likes to make money, and how much they do not think that this game is going to make money, and how much, like I said, they basically sold Eidos because Tomb Raider didn't break. Like, they thought 3 million sales was a failure, and this game has not even sold 3 million units on one system.
Correct.
It's taken them like multiple generations to even get 3.5 million over 30 years. Like I said, I think you're being super optimistic, and you could buy the game on eBay for like $50. So
no, you cannot.
Like
no, you cannot. It is $350. Please do some research before you say something ridiculous like that.
Looking at a listing right now.
Check and see if it says reproduction. There are people selling reproduction carts on eBay. Fuck, I'll do it for you. I have my own eBay account. Look, I'm going to go to last sold. Here we go. Last sold copies of Chrono Trigger. $400. 224. 190. Cartridge damaged. Tested and working. 250. Chrono Trigger. Super NES. Tested. Authentic. Clean. 209 and 50 cents. Chrono Trigger. Super Nintendo. 239. 215. 240. $37 for a unlimited HP English game hack Chrono Trigger. What does that even mean? $524 for a complete version of Chrono Trigger in box. $250 for just the cartridge. $225 for just the cartridge with some label damage. $10 for the Japanese version of the cartridge. $35 for the Japanese version of the cartridge. $355 for the complete no box, all manuals and artworks included Chrono Trigger. $90 for just the manual. $204 for authentic and tested, not clean, label damage version of Chrono Trigger. There is not a single fucking Chrono Trigger on here that is legitimate that is less than $200.
It looks like the one I was looking at was Japanese version.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh, but there's one for 80 that sold last month. Looks like it was game only.
There's a game only tested and working with cart damage for the DS version for 65. So you could do that.
Sorry, this is the Super Nintendo one. My bad. $80 for a Super Nintendo Chrono Trigger is actually really good.
How the hell did you find that? Where is that at?
I'm on your price charting website.
Oh, link
and it
me
says
that.
the loose price for it $70 right there.
It is not true.
But it could be Japanese only.
I'm checking this out.
Mm-hmm. Oh, nope, this one's English. Chrono Trigger DS 2008, cartridge only, $65.
DS version, yes.
Mm-hmm.
DS version, $65 to $70. I've seen two that sold with cart damage, which just means like the label's torn, that sort of shit. The DS version is not as bad, aside from getting a complete in box, which is like 100, 150.
Wait, so what were you pricing then?
All the ones I was naming was the Super Nintendo.
Oh, like I said, there's a Super Nintendo one that was $80, cartridge only.
Where? Because I'm looking at loose sold listings right now for Super Nintendo, and it says loose price is $37 on average.
There's the listing right there for you.
I mean, look at this. This hasn't. Did this sell?
It said it did on the other website, but maybe it's still available.
This game is a copy. The shell has been replaced with the aftermarket shell, light scratches, otherwise very good condition. This is fake.
So you think just because they say the shell's been replaced, you think it's like
this
the whole
game
thing
is a copy? That's the first sentence. It's fake. This game is a copy. So it's a reproduction with an aftermarket shell. Literally says this game is a copy.
Doesn't make sense to me. I think that's why I'm confused. Because how would the shell be replaced if it was a copy?
What do you mean?
Well, because it doesn't. That's a useless thing to point out then. Because if it's a repo, then it wouldn't matter. You know what I'm saying?
Okay. So if you go look at the reproduction carts, they don't use the original artwork, so that you know it's a reproduction cart. Do you understand what I'm saying?
No, I understand that.
So this is a reproduction cart that then replaced it with the original artwork. That's what they're saying.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So basically, they suck.
It's a reproduction, but instead they used a shell that has the original artwork and replaced the reproduction shell with another reproduction shell. You still can play the game, but that is fake, and that is a fake for $80. That's insane. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. But anyways, though, yeah.
Like I only paid $30 for my reproduction of Mother 3. I only paid $30 for it. So like, damn.
But the other thing you have to remember though too, like as deep as we are into games, like collector prices do not reflect general populace interest. So
that's true. I will say that is true.
Like I said, I still will be shocked if they do anything bigger than like just like run-of-the-mill remake. But I said we'll see. There's multiple projects this year, so who knows? So we'll see.
You think one of them is that fabled Final Fantasy IX remake?
But they said Chrono Trigger projects.
Oh, okay. I thought you meant like multiple other projects that Square Enix was also working on this year. That's why I got.
Oh yeah, no Chrono Trigger. I mean, they're working on lots of stuff, but yeah,
because there's a lot of stuff supposedly in the works from Square Enix right now, but we never see or hear anything about it. So I mean, I'm hoping this is the year when we hear something, you know.
And also, just I guess food for thought on the flip side, Chrono Trigger, like the Super Famicom version, is like
super cheap,
dirt cheap.
Yep.
Like not even.
That's the interesting thing. Pretty much every single Japanese version of highly sought after American games is super fucking cheap. Like you could get like games for like pennies on the dollar if it's the Japanese version. In fact, like a lot of people that like collecting start collecting with the Japanese complete in box because you can get those for like $30.
Yeah, which makes sense why there's a lot of those on eBay. But I would say even when I was in Japan and the games that I brought home, this is cheaper than even the stuff that I had bought. Like this is actually like my copy, my Famicom copy of what was it? Super Mario Brothers USA definitely cost more than this game. So yeah.
Did you go to like Super Potato? I can't remember if you went there.
I went to, I think I did. I don't remember which one. I could look at my stuff. I have it.
So
I would have it
there
written down on
are
which one.
these places that are called hard offs in Japan,
Mhm.
that are bookstores that also now sell video games, and
Mhm.
a lot of games are able to be bought cheaper at hard offs now. What I've been seeing when it comes to like the retro market. So if you like want to collect retro games that are Japanese, you can do it a lot easier because they tend to like price stuff very cheaply at hard offs now.
Yeah. So I have a lot there, but yeah, like I said, it'll be interesting to see. I just don't think that I don't think Square is going to be nearly as enthusiastic as you are. So
It's not that I'm like super enthusiastic. I like Chrono Trigger. I think it's a really really good game. I think it is the 10 out of 10, but it's not like my favorite game. I get that again. That goes to Persona 3, which had a fantastic remake, but that's neither here nor there. My point is, I do think that in some respect, Square is starting to look at past games that are like reviewed as darlings, like they're 10 out of 10 games, and trying to find what way can I Americanify this so that it
mhm.
will sell the maximum amount of copies as humanly possible. And I think that is a thing that is happening with Square Enix. And I think that the next one, the chopping block for that thing to happen, is Chrono Trigger.
It could be. Um, but also keep in mind that the Chrono Cross remaster, it looks like it didn't even break
Chrono Cross is
500,000.
dog shit.
Yeah, well, it's still the same series, and they're going to look at them
It's
similarly.
barely the same series. There
Mhm.
is like a very big difference between Trigger and Cross. I've
I
never
understand
liked
this. I know
Cross.
the difference. Uh, yeah. So there's that. What else? Oh, there's a Silent Hill thing coming up in 2 days.
I'm listening.
Uh,
What? What?
there's
Huh?
a Silent Hill live stream on the 13th where they're going
Ooh!
to show off Silent Hill F, apparently.
Ooh! Yay!
Hmm.
I've been looking
Uh,
forward to that game. I hope it's very good.
yeah, hopefully. So,
The
uh,
developer that did that is a well-known visual novel developer who made a game called When They Cry, which is a game about this city that not city, this village that is kind of afflicted with this curse where a lot of the people get driven insane and become very murderous in ways over time because of this event that takes place, like this kind of like ritual that takes place in the village. And it's a very very good visual novel. It's very old, and like it's from the 90s, so like I could say very old now, and although it hurts my soul saying it out loud, but a lot of people would consider it very old. And it is it's very good, and the writing is very good, and the corresponding anime that was made based off of it really showed how like depraved and like crazy this guy goes when it comes to like writing. This person goes when it comes to writing, because I can't remember if it's a male or female that wrote it, but anyway, how depraved this person gets when it comes to writing like psychological horror. I do think they'll be a really good fit for Silent Hill, and they are the one that's writing and making Silent Hill F. So I'm very excited about this.
yeah, hopefully it ends up being interesting. So we'll know
Yeah,
more by the time we talk next week. And the last thing on this rapid fire news thing that I got is apparently Xbox.
it's
Uh,
working on a handheld, right? Is that what we're
yeah,
talking about?
supposedly this year, with the next gen console coming next year.
So, I heard 2028 for the next gen console, but I guess next year is now the one that's floating around. But okay.
It says targeting. You know what that means. It doesn't mean
Mhm.
anything. So yeah, it's
Anyway,
just.
um,
Mhm.
the handheld. Um, I think, and I think I've said this before, but I'm not sure if I have. I think handheld like PCs and stuff like that are going to be like the next big market that everyone's going to be targeting, and we already see a lot of people targeting that with MSI and Lenovo and Asus. With
Oh
the
yeah.
ROG Ally, we've seen a lot of people jump in on that. So seeing Microsoft take their shot at it, I would not be surprised in the least bit. And I do think that integrating in a handheld with Game Pass would be fucking genius.
Yeah, I actually think this is I think this might be Microsoft's best chance for a resurgence.
I do too.
Um, yeah. Because it does give them a leg up over Sony where it's like, hey, you can play all these current gen games portably now,
Hmm. Hmm.
and you don't have that ability to do that anywhere else. And really, be considering that there's very few like PlayStation exclusives, like you would have a good chunk of library just with
Well,
Xbox stuff. So
here's the thing, right?
mhm.
If they made an Xbox handheld, right, and it's also like in the style of like a Steam Deck or an ROG
Mhm.
Ally or whatever, where it's like, you could just install things on it and use it.
Oh, if it's like the PC back, then you could play
Yeah,
PlayStation games.
you could
That's
play
funny.
PlayStation's exclusives on the Xbox handheld through Steam, and that would be fucking hilarious.
Yes, it would. I didn't even consider that. Yes, that would actually be masterclass from Xbox.
Hmm.
And I don't think they have the balls to market it, but they might do it. So
Everything is an Xbox, and then show PlayStation games. That would be wild.
yes, and they should just be like, it will play all of your Steam games,
Hmm.
all of your Steam games.
If it's a
Like it,
Windows handheld, like it actually uses Windows, it really would play all of your Steam games. That's
yeah.
literally what it would do.
hmm And I think the rumor was that's kind of what they were leaning towards.
Yeah.
At least one of the ones that I had saw. I mean, who knows? Hmm
See, because there's I love my Steam Deck. I love my Steam Deck. But there is a very real problem with the Steam Deck. And that is compatibility when it comes to these games that have anti-cheat. Because Linux is not made for a lot of anti-cheats. So several games that are huge, massive. Your Apex Legends, your Fortnite, your games like I think Call of Duty, and I think GTA 5 also in some respects. They may have reverted it, but I'm not sure.
hmm
All the Genshin Impact and Zenless Zone Zero games, those games all have an anti-cheat that can't be ran on Linux. And Steam is using Linux. If you are able to play every single one of those on an Xbox handheld or Microsoft handheld, because it's not going to be advertised as an Xbox handheld, it'll be advertised as a Microsoft handheld. But if you're able to do that, then that gives them a leg up on the competition as long as it's comparable specs wise with something like an ROG Ally or a Lenovo Legion Go or an MSI, whatever the fuck they call theirs. Basically, being able to play those big titles like your Fortnites and stuff, and like the ones that have those anti cheats, is something the Steam Deck actually can't do. So that's a market that they could tap into that the Steam Deck doesn't have, because the Steam
Yeah.
Deck has a lot of the market space right now when it comes to handhelds, but Windows handhelds, as long as they're done correctly, could really, really, pop off because of the fact that they'd be able to play those games with those anti cheats
Yeah.
if it's running on a Windows OS.
hmm
I mean, hell, I'd probably buy a Windows handheld just to be able to play something like Fortnite or fucking Call of Duty on the go. I'm pretty sure there are plenty of other people that would do the same.
Yeah, actually, and you figure though, that's going to be, it's if it's an Xbox handheld, they're going to want Call of Duty on the go. Like, that's going to
Oh
be
yeah,
a big thing. That
absolutely.
will be like mission critical for them. So
Hmm.
yeah, yeah. So they'll definitely get that. And you're right, there definitely are people who will want that. So
Yeah,
hmm
I think
yeah,
that's actually like a really big deal, and I think similar, like you said, um, if they're able to pull that off, then they'll have a huge market share when it comes to like mobile gaming.
oh yeah,
Like no one's going to topple Nintendo. Let's be honest, no one's going to topple Nintendo.
hmm
But I do think Microsoft will have kind of like a resurgence if they're able to pull it off.
yeah. I could honestly see them, especially knowing how Sony likes to half-ass things.
Hmm.
I could definitely actually see them having a heads up in the mobile space versus the
Hmm.
console space.
Yeah.
Especially compared to like Sony. Like if Sony ends up releasing their handheld, let's
If
say.
we got a Vita too, that would
Mhm.
be fucking awesome, because I think the Vita is a really good handheld, and they did a lot of good things with the Vita, except for market it. That they just pretty much put it out there and then was like, all right, bye, and
Eh,
that was
Vita had two big problems: marketing and
and
memory.
the memory, yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. You
Yeah.
less use SS, you less use SDs, or like micro or SSDs, like let us use micro SDs or
Yeah.
SSDs, and make a Sony handheld, and I'm fucking all in. But like, if they're like, oh, we're selling our proprietary memory again, you're fucked. You're
Yep,
fucked, Sony.
exactly. Or if they do something dumb like it's all streaming or something
Yeah.
weird like that.
Yep.
Like they could definitely give themselves, like I said, based on some of the other stuff that they do, it wouldn't surprise me if they misstep there because they seem to always miss the mark on it.
I know. I
Mhm.
know. I want Sony to not suck. Like, honestly, I'm not even joking. I'm not even being a hater. I just want them to not suck at doing things like that.
Yeah, I think
Because
they need to get knocked around a little bit more.
uh,
That's the problem. They're making all these missteps, but they're still just hand over fist money. So like,
I know, I know.
mhm.
They
Anyway,
they need to put out a handheld like the PSP. If they can do something like that, they'll be back on top. That'd be so good for them. Because I think the PSP was like the perfect handheld. That was a really good fucking handheld.
uh,
I
PSP.
I know what you're gonna say. One stick,
Oh no,
the
actually, I wasn't gonna
nubbins.
say. I was saying the PSP. I think its issues as a handheld were battery life and UMDs.
I didn't have a problem with the UMDs. What were your problems with the UMDs?
UMDs, they always like to like crack and break in those little shells.
Oh, I
But
never had any UMDs break ever.
oh, I
I
saw
still
all
have
the
a
time at
lot of mine.
GameStop. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Um, but
Oh,
the other thing,
you had to deal with the lowest common denominator of people that have bought games. I mean, come on.
yeah,
Of
but
course they gotta break them.
the things that I
They're probably using them as fucking frisbees. Let's be honest.
yeah, but it was pretty common. That's what I'm saying. Like it's like yeah, like it's just kind of like I mean, just like it's a scratch disc or something. But I would say I feel like you'd be more likely to see a damaged like UMD than you would say like a disc that I thought was so scratched it wasn't playable.
Okay, let me rephrase what I was saying.
Mhm.
The games that you could play on the PSP, I think, were some of Sony's best. I'll rephrase it to be
Oh yeah,
that.
that I agree with. Yeah.
Because I will agree, the handheld itself had some issues, such as batteries exploding. That was cool. I liked that
Mhm.
one. That
Oh
happened
yeah.
to me recently. I heard a loud pop and I was like, what the fuck just blew up in my house? It turned out a PSP that I haven't used in forever had its battery expand and explode inside one of my boxes. I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's
So
pretty wild.
yeah, that happened like a month ago, like
Yeah, I'm
last month.
surprised you forgot to tell us this.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
no, that
forgot
is
all
wild.
about it. But yeah, other than that, it's like, and I guess the UMDs, if you saw people run into issues with them, I think
There's
the
that, but also
actual,
the other side of UMDs is that does put more of a drain on the battery
yeah,
too. It's probably one of the reasons why
I
it
was gonna
has
say, think the other side of that though is like it did have some of the best software, like period, during its time. Like I had some fantastic games that you could play on the PSP, and I also love the fact that you could like transfer over like games from PS3 to PSP, and it had some of the like cross, like bringing over from, like, you buy this version, you get the PSP version also, and it did the
Oh
same
yeah.
with the Vita. I loved all of those elements of the PSP a lot, and the like slew of hardware that was there. I think one of my most emulated systems right now is still PSP, because they had like fucking awesome games on there.
The PSP, you said?
Yeah, PSP is one of my most emulated systems currently.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it did have a lot of great games though. So, and it was back to the era when Sony actually tried to do like inventive and unique things.
Oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Like you had like Patapon and shit.
I was gonna say, yeah,
I know.
Patapom,
Yeah,
Tearaway,
yeah.
or was that Vita?
Vita is Tearaway.
Vita. But yeah, still the same kind of like
Hmm.
generation kind of thing. Yeah, no, they did like a lot of neat stuff there. They brought a lot of their franchises back to the Vita as well.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that area of Sony when they were still doing handheld stuff, actually, actually the Vita too. A lot of their first party stuff was excellent. Like
Yeah,
that,
I agree. I
the
absolutely agree.
Killzone on that was one of the best,
It
better
was
than
fucking
the
awesome.
console ones, arguably.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Uncharted that was there wasn't
Going
bad.
back to Monster Hunter, the PSP Monster Hunters were fan fucking tastic. They were really really good. Portable Third was awesome.
Hmm.
Obviously some of these didn't actually make it over to the US, but we had Crisis Core on the PSP. That was fucking cool. The God of
Oh yeah.
War Chains of Olympus game that was on there. I like, there
That
was
was
some
pretty good.
good shit on
There's two on
PSP.
the PSP. I can't
Yeah.
remember what the other one was.
That
But they were both pretty good.
Persona 3 was also on PSP, and I think this is a very underrated game. But I think Metal Gear Acid 1 and 2 was awesome. The card game, Metal Gear Solid strategy game, that shit was fucking cool. I loved that game.
Peace
You had like
Walker was PSP
Peace
too,
Walker.
right?
I was just about to say that Peace Walker was there
I
as well.
love Peace Walker. It's
Peace
actually one of
Walker's
my
excellent.
favorite Metal Gears.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And then we already mentioned Patapon, and Loco Roco was on there as well.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
they had really good shit on the PSP. Like you could not take two steps without finding a good game for PSP. They had excellent fucking games.
Mm-hmm.
I love the Hot Shots Golf series, and a lot of the Hot Shots Golf games were on PSP as well. Kingdom Hearts. What was it, Birth by Sleep? Yeah, Birth by Sleep was on PSP. The game was fucking excellent. That was one of the better Kingdom Hearts games, in my opinion.
Yeah, a lot of people really like that one.
Lumines. Lumines is
Luminous.
one of.
Yep.
Is it Luminous? Yeah. Okay. Whatever. That one. That game. That's one of my favorite puzzle games. I love that game. It's a great game. Damn, dude. I'm like looking through some of the games now that I like started remembering them, and there's like ones on here that I didn't know existed. Like I didn't know there was a Guitaro Man spin-off on PSP. That's fucking cool. I'm gonna download that later.
There was the Grand Theft Autos. I know a lot of people like the Vice City stories, and the Liberty City stories was on there.
Yep. Damn, dude, there's so many good PSP games on here. Oh, Dissidia, Final Fantasy Dissidia, the fighting game Final Fantasy. That shit was cool.
Yeah.
They remade Personas on the system. Not just Persona 3, but like Persona 2 is on here as well.
Yes,
dude,
1 and 2 are both on
there. Mm-hmm. Oh, and fucking Tactics Ogre and Final Fantasy Tactics are on here. Dude, this just PSP was like one of the best handhelds ever. I love my Game Boy, but like, bro, this is some good shit.
It did. Well, that's actually like a good era for people who played handheld, because you had that going on at the same time, the DS, and I mean the DS was knocking it out of the park too.
Absolutely.
The Final Fantasy Tactics remake, that was on there. Yeah. Anyways,
like I said, this feels like when Sony knew what they were, and it's really a shame that we are where we're at now with Sony, which is really, really quite upsetting, because it's like you look at the variety and the amount of games you had on this one handheld, and then you also think about the games you had on the PlayStation 3 as well, and it's like, damn, they were so good. And just now you look at everything, and it's like a remake of a game that was already on the system like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
It's so upsetting, honestly. I just want Sony to do better. It would make me very happy if they did.
Maybe someday.
Maybe. And I will say this, for as much shit as I give Sony, I did recently get rid of my Switches, all of them. Because Switch 2 is coming out. I'm buying it day one. Yeah. I don't need a Switch currently now, and I have an HAC 001 unit, which is worth a lot more money, so that's why I ended up selling them. So I did that. I got like $350 just for the tablets.
Not bad.
So
usually not bad at all, really.
I sold 2, so it was like $150 a piece. Yeah, but whatever.
Did you keep the Joy-Cons? Is that why I sold them?
The Joy-Cons. I still got the docks. I still got the charging cable. I still got my everything. So I'm going to get rid of those like piecemeal as well. But I just sold the tablets to someone who mods them and then sells hack switches online. I was like, fuck it, I don't care. Whatever, give me money and I'll be happy. So anyway, I did that. But I was thinking about that because like, I had to save some of my Pokemon before I got rid of my Switches. So like I used Pokemon Home for the first time to save some of my like really good Pokemon, like some of my legendaries, some of my shinies, and that sort of thing. And I was like, for as much shit as I give PlayStation, at least they're not a Nintendo Switch. Because I tried booting Pokemon and that shit runs like ass still. Like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet is just unplayably.
Oh yeah, no, it's really bad. Actually, it's
unacceptable. Honestly, it really is. And if it wasn't made by by fucking Game Freak, people would be giving it a lot more shit.
No, yeah, I know exactly. But it wasn't one of the biggest video game franchises of all time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and it was actually funny because I saw someone on Reddit kind of post the same thing we talked about, I think last week when we were talking about the Pokemon Presents, where
Mm-hmm.
they're like, someone basically like, it's the Switch's fault that Pokemon ZA looks as shitty as it does, and that person got a dog piled on and was like, no, Game Freak fucking sucks. Pokemon Company fucking sucks. Their games are just not optimized. And they were like, and actually, they had a really good point, which I didn't even think of, because I'm like, oh yeah, look at Xenoblade, remember? They're like, look at fucking Breath of the Wild, which was a Wii U game that got ported to the Switch, and
All right,
it
hold
looked
on.
better than.
It does
Yeah.
look better. It does look better. But at least the original Breath of the Wild, and also to some respect Tears of the Kingdom, have very bad performance issues. And I can guarantee you that because I know for a fact that Tears of the Kingdom, the first month of release, ran at like 24 FPS. And again, that's not acceptable. That's literally cinematic territory. So,
But
but
still looks better than.
but also you had a lot of issues with how good Breath of the Wild looked because, like, again, for instance, where you pull the Master Sword out in Breath of the Wild, that place was synonymous with performance problems. It would drop as low as to like 15 FPS, and this was like documented when Breath of the Wild came out. So it's like there's give and take there, but like there's a lot of take because it for as good as it looks, it also doesn't perform good. So I do believe it is a little of column A and a little of column B, but I also believe, like we talked about, that Game Freak is just incompetent when it comes to making their games.
Yeah.
But I don't think the Switch helps at all.
Well, no, if you're not going to optimize your game, it doesn't matter. You could be playing on a fucking shoebox and it will still be shitty. So,
well, no, you could be playing it on a PS5 and fucking it would still run like dog shit if it's not optimized. And we've seen that with several games. So, like, we've seen that with PS5 Pro games. Literally, if your game isn't optimized, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much horsepower you throw at it. I mean, I have a really good PC, and Monster Hunter Wilds runs like shit. It's as simple as that, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And I'd say this all the time, play all the different games, but it's like you have to build the game for the platform. You have to optimize it for the platform, and yeah, just a lot of times it just doesn't happen. So, anyways, ready to wrap things up?
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay. Thank you everyone for listening to us tonight. Don't forget to find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google, Amazon, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. All our episodes are on game-crunch.com. And if you want to reach out to us, you can always send us an email at gamecrunchcast@gmail.com. Brandon?
I'm good. Thanks. We're good. I got nothing else to say.
All right. I'll take it. That said, my name is Mike Anastasia. You can find me online. I am Clash of Penguin there or on your favorite gaming console. And until next week, game on.
Game on.
There it is.
Yeah, man. I was, the other thing that surprised me, right?
Yeah.
Because the other thing I had to do was swap my Pokemon off of Arceus and put them into the pasture so I could pull them out and put them into. That game runs incredibly well. Like that game, even though it is 30 FPS, very obviously, it still is fluid and it still feels nice to run through. Unlike Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, because I had to run back to
Arceus is pretty stable. The Scarlet and Violet is very unstable.
It's unstable. I almost had it crash on me, literally, just booting it up, and I was like, "What the fuck is wrong with this game?"
Yeah, no, it's just it's very unhappy. Like it does
Yeah,
not want to.
it doesn't want to be a game.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, like I said, just like I said, obviously, even with Nintendo's own in-house studios, they've shown that you can definitely optimize it a lot better than it is. So why it's so janky.
Yeah.
Just yeah. So hopefully they put more time into whatever
All
else.
I know is that I want the horsepower of the Switch 2 to be able to brute force some of these games. Not Pokemon. Pokemon doesn't matter. That one's literally off the table. But maybe something like Astral Chain, which is a really good game. I would love to play that at a higher frame rate, just saying. That'd be awesome. Or, I don't know, let me think of another game that I would like to play at a higher frame rate. Bayonetta 3. Yep, exactly. Those sort of things, that's what I think I would really like to I want that out of the Switch 2. And it's ridiculous that out of the Switch 2, I'm asking for Switch games to run better.
I mean, you're not the first person to do it. Like, there's a lot of stuff that would be nice if it ran better. So, I mean, it's an 8-year-old system and it was outdated when it released. But the other thing though is the Switch 2 will probably be outdated when it releases too. So,
Oh yeah, it already is outdated. You and I both
Mhm.
know that.
Yeah.
I guess that's just the long and short of it. It's because of the chips that they're using, and it's because of the fact that it is what it is.
Mhm.
But it being outdated at the start doesn't really matter. What matters is how outdated it becomes and how quickly it becomes. So, like, if it's outdated, right? And honestly, I think this should have been a discussion on the podcast. So I don't know if you're still recording, but if so, this should probably stay a discussion on the podcast. If the Switch 2 is outdated when it releases, that's fine as long as it's not so outdated that it takes less than a year for it to be in a position that's acceptable, if that makes any sense. I believe the Switch originally took less than a year, and in some cases launched in a position that was completely unacceptable. If you look at things like the Wii U version and the Switch version side by side, yes, the Switch version looks better, but the performance of the Wii U version is better in many cases for Breath of the Wild day one release. And that was
Well, that
unacceptable.
one was. That one
No, I'm
makes a
just
little
saying.
bit more
I'm
sense,
saying.
but
I'm
yeah.
saying that is unacceptable. That's not an
Mhm.
acceptable thing to have happen when you've just released your new console and it's running worse than the one that you are coming from. Even if it is boosted up to 1080p, even if it is a better resolution, that's not the point. The point is having this acceptable frame rate, not having these big inflections of frame rate drops and like freezes and everything. And
Mhm.
whereas there were moments in the Switch where, oh, it looks better, but also it runs worse compared to the Wii U version day one launch. That
Yeah.
is
I mean,
what set the Switch apart from being acceptable and being outdated to being unacceptable and outdated out the gate. So
no,
if the
I
Switch
think
2 can
you're
avoid something like that, I think that's fine if you're
yeah,
outdated.
but you're really blowing out of proportion Breath of
Well,
the
not
Wild.
not really, because
Yeah, really. Calling it unacceptable, like, is it great? No. But is it unplayable? No,
so
definitely not.
I think you're misunderstanding what I'm saying, because I'm not saying that Breath of the Wild itself is unacceptable. I'm saying the performance of the Switch and how outdated the Switch was compared to, its being a brand new release is what was unacceptable, if that makes any sense. It's the performance of the Switch and just how outdated it was on launch that was unacceptable, not specifically Breath of the Wild is unacceptable. It's unacceptable for this game to blah 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 be this. It's more specifically, you could already see the writing on the wall with where the Switch was going to go and how quickly it was going to become outdated because of that specific instance. And that is what was unacceptable, not so much so the game itself. So it's like if the game were to launch, right? Like if the Switch 2 were to launch and let's say Metroid Prime 4 is a launch title. Let's speak
Mhm.
hypothetically for a second now.
Yeah.
Now, let's say the Switch version runs at 30 FPS, but it's a nice, solid, across the board 30 FPS, 480p, whatever. It's something that you can play without having dips and stutters and this, that, and the other. But then the Switch 2 version comes out, and the Switch 2 version comes out the same day And although it is 60, it's more consistently in the 40s, and it's constantly having frame rate drops into those same 30s. That's a case where that would be unacceptable. It's kind of like also what happened with Elden Ring. Elden Ring launched on the PS5 and the PS4 the same day. People installed the PS4 version on their PS5 because the PS5 version was so unacceptable that it just didn't run correctly. That was because of the optimization of the game. But if you have a system that's the problem more so than the game's optimization itself, that's a problem. That's
But
a
it's
problem.
probably in Breath
That's
of the
not
Wild case,
acceptable.
though, it probably was more that it was ported
Mhm.
as opposed to being built, properly for the system, which is probably why they were able to optimize it much better shortly down the road after it
So
came out.
it took months for them to fix Breath of the Wild. I will tell you that right now. It took about 3.5 months before it was at the same place that it's at now.
Well, yeah, because
However,
that was the last major performance update, anyways.
also
Mhm.
think of something like Tears of the Kingdom, which exists right now. It has launched, it exists, it has had updates, and it still has big frame rate drops. It still has big things like that. That is my point. The writing was on
Tears
the
of the
walls.
Kingdom, in terms of that, is it's on par with Breath of the Wild in terms of like the frame rate stuff. After it was optimized, like I don't think it's nearly as bad as you think it was.
So I tried playing it about 2 months ago. So unless there's been a recent actually it was before Christmas. So a little bit more than 2 months ago, about 3 or 4 months ago now. Anyway, but my point is, there was still lots of frame rate problems, especially when doing things like building and putting things together and whatnot, to like create like little contraptions and shit, and using different abilities in quick succession. There were a lot of frame rate drops, like a lot, especially like when you had like the whole ground below you is being like lit up and you're like grabbing different things and gluing them together and building and that sort of shit. When that was a thing that you do, the frame rate still drops a lot, like into the 20s,
Yeah, if you
from
get
the
into the,
30
I mean,
FPS.
obviously, if you get into the wild building stuff,
I'm not even
yeah.
talking about wild. I'm just talking about like building in general.
I
That
mean,
drops to 20s. I
mm,
don't think you notice it. I don't think you notice it,
no, there
but
definitely. I mean, there was some. I
it
mean, I don't
definitely
disagree. There's
drops.
definitely frame rate issues with when you're building. I just
Hmm.
don't remember them being like anything that I considered. I mean, it's like it's probably
So
just me. I don't think
so
it's anything
there's
that broke my ability to play the game.
there's they were smart about this game and actually have like essentially a VSync. So like when it goes down to a certain rate, it just caps it there. So
Mhm.
like you drop from 30, but then immediately get capped at 20 when you start building. And like that's the way it's built. But it feels very unnatural if you notice it. I do know that you're not susceptible to that sort of thing and whatnot, and that's fine. That's not a problem. But it was something that really bothered me in that game and really showed just how underpowered the Switch was for what it was trying to do. And essentially, I was like, okay, well, I knew this was going to happen essentially because I knew how bad the performance was out the gate with the original Breath of the Wild and how it was tough for them to do a lot of things in the open world with the original Breath of the Wild. And now on top of that, we're trying to like build shit and whatnot. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's just not going to
recipe
work.
for disaster.
Yeah, exactly. So like that's essentially what I'm trying to say. If you can already notice like the writing on the wall of some performance issues at launch that are like they're performance issues and this is on a new system that just launched, that's not okay. That's really not okay. And the chip that was in the Switch, the original Switch, when it launched, it was already 3 years out of date.
Yeah.
So that's a big problem. So if you can see these patterns, that's when launching something that is already um uh what's the word I'm looking for? Outdated is a problem. If there's no pattern like that and they found a way to like optimize the games and get everything running the way it should on the system, and they're not trying to do something on their system that is too heavy for the system out the gate, or they've at least adjusted it some so that it won't be too heavy for the system, that's good. But if they can't do that for their system, that's bad, and
But the other
that's
thing, but
the thing
also
I don't
though,
want to see happen with the Switch too.
but the other thing though is like I don't know. I think you're putting too much weight on launch games too. Like a lot of times, launch games are not really well optimized, anyways, just because you are really tight trying to get to that launch window, because
Uh-huh.
you don't want to miss it. You watch your game on the shelf when those
Hmm.
those things come out.
Yeah.
But also too, just the lack of familiarity with it when it's coming out. It's your first time with the system. It's not like you have unlimited time to get used to it. And generally, it's like the second generation of games usually are tend to be the best optimized for the systems.
Yes, and that is true. I do not disagree there because you think back to like the PS4 and you think of something like Knack, which was
Killzone.
very poorly optimized. I'm specifically
Yeah,
pointing
Knack had
at
a
Knack.
lot of frame rate
Knack had a
issues.
lot of frame rate issues,
Mhm.
and that was smoothed out. But and I get that. That does make a lot of sense the way you're stating that, and that has been a constant when it comes to games and that sort of deal.
Yeah.
But
So
if
I
you
mean, I would
already,
say your weight on like Tears of the
Mhm.
Kingdom makes more sense versus say the ones for Breath of the Wild.
Well, my
Mhm.
my main point and the reason why
Mhm.
I'm using Tears of the Kingdom and Breath of the Wild as an example is because they're both in the same engine. They're both in the same world
Oh yeah,
and
exactly.
that sort of deal. And
Mhm.
since we were already able to see the performance problems with Breath of the Wild, we would know that in the future, when Tears of the Kingdom came out, that there was also going to be performance issues there because they weren't able to flatten all the performance issues. And that was something that you were able to tell was okay, this isn't performance issues because of optimization. After about a year of updates to Breath of the Wild,
Uh-huh.
this is performance issues because of the platform it's on, because
But
of the Switch itself. And then that was something that like kind of stuck with me the rest of the time because I would also notice this performance issues in other games. And sure, there are games that did not have those performance issues whatsoever because they weren't big, huge, sprawling open worlds with a lot of this, that, and the other. And there were some examples, such as Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and 1, which were great. I do not think Xenoblade Chronicles 2 runs well at all. I think that game also ran like hot dog shit.
but that was
Um,
also that was also a launch window game too.
yes, yes, you're correct. You're correct.
Which is also
Um,
why they like I think we talked about it. Like when they optimized that
I
game
also
later,
think they
like
were
it
just
worked
being.
significantly
I
better.
think. I think they were being too ambitious with some of their launch window games, and I think that's a constant with a lot of things. Like we just talked about Knack before, they were
Yeah.
being very ambitious with the amount of particles on screen
Well, they
when
always
like
do
he would
because they want to
explode.
show off all the
Exactly,
fun new
exactly.
stuff.
But
Yeah.
but here's the other example I will give. Right,
Mhm.
this example is like one of the only ones I can point to,
Mhm.
but I swear this is a really good example.
Mhm.
Astrobot, Playroom,
Mhm.
PS5,
Yeah.
60 FPS,
Mhm.
perfect ray tracing, no
Yeah.
frame drops,
Mhm.
nothing whatsoever.
Mhm.
Perfectly optimized. Showed
Mhm.
off the tech of the console
Mhm.
excellently.
Mhm.
No issues whatsoever with the game.
Mhm.
That told me
How
then and
long is it?
there, about 6 hours. And you're
Exactly.
correct. You're correct.
Mhm.
You're correct.
That's the
However,
trade-off. Like they
you're
the amount that they like it's the
and I
trade-off with
was
all
and
the
I was
launch
gonna
games.
I was gonna
Yeah.
get to that. I
Mhm.
was gonna get to that.
Yeah.
They weren't trying to do too much and being
Mhm.
over ambitious, but they
Yeah.
also were able to do enough to show off the actual technology.
Mhm. Yeah.
And then when they made Astro Bot, the new
Mhm.
one that came out
Yeah.
last year, they were able to recreate that and add more
Mhm.
to it with what they have learned and expand on it and still have a solid 60 FPS the entire way through the game. Fantastic playthrough and like add like 6 hours of gameplay to it. So like yeah,
Yeah.
now it's like 10 hours, 12 hours,
Mhm.
but it still is like it's perfect. Like
Mhm.
they knew how to work with the hardware and they didn't push it too hard, but they also pushed it enough that there's very clearly showing off everything that it can do, and it
Mhm.
does complement the hardware itself while doing so. And that was like the perfect way of handling something like that. And I do think that like when launch games come out, they should be able to do something like that. I think like Mario 64, like from the N64 back in the day, was a really good example of something like that as well.
Yeah, but you
Um,
also remember the thing that they kept doing, like there's a reason why. It's the opposite reason of what usually happens.
hmm?
Because instead of instead of delaying the game for the N64, they kept delaying the N64 for
They
the
did.
game.
I
Yeah,
remember that. I remember
yeah.
that. Yep, they did. You're right.
And that
You're 100%
that
correct.
that was the thing with
Yep,
that one because that gave them unlimited
yep,
time to do it. So they had the time to do all that polish, and they
yep.
needed to because they really needed to sell the system.
Hmm.
Another one that they did that too, actually, and kind of with that trade off they were talking about too, just because it's topical, but it's a really good example of it as well. Luigi's Mansion, like short
On
as
GameCube.
fuck,
Hmm.
but that game really showed like
It did.
everything the GameCube
It
could
did.
do. Hmm.
And that was an absolutely incredible game as well. It's
Yeah,
fantastic. It
like
really set you up for
vile
what the
visual
GameCube
effects.
was.
Yeah.
Yep.
Like you could see the
And
dust everywhere and everything.
I guess
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to say. They don't, if they're not over ambitious, right? And they also optimize things, then it will work out a lot better than trying to go over ambitious and being like, fuck the performance, who gives a shit? And that will make the console itself, I guess, appear to be less underpowered and probably sell better.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, you said probably sell better. Uh, Asterisk.
And
The Switch is the second best-selling console of all time, or whatever.
I'm aware of that. I'm aware of
Yeah.
that. But I do think that they'd be able to. I do think that
And
they would be able to.
they would have outsold the PlayStation 2
Oh
if they
yeah,
had a more better
absolutely.
optimized Breath of the
Well,
Wild.
no. They would have outsold the PS2 if Sony didn't find 600 million more laying around in a fucking warehouse somewhere and was like, "Yeah, we sold those also."
Yeah,
Fucking
our
bought them
DVD players.
themselves.
Who wants
Hmm.
them?
Yep. No, what I was gonna say is, um, I think that you're making me laugh now, and I'm like, I lost my train of thought for a second because I think that there's a lot of people when it comes to the Switch
Mhm.
that drop the Switch, myself included, because of the terrible performance that was the Nintendo Switch. Some people found it unacceptable. Some people didn't continue riding out the Switch or stop the last few years because they just didn't find it acceptable the way that that console currently acted. And a lot of people dropped a lot of Nintendo things because of that. And I do think that it'd be easier to reel those people back in if they did what I was talking about, where they weren't over ambitious. They had something that is optimized, very clearly designed for the hardware, feels nice, great to play. It's like there are examples of really good Switch games,
Yeah,
even though,
but the thing is,
like for instance, Mario Kart 8. Mario
mhm.
Kart 8 Deluxe, right? That's the subtitle.
Yeah, I think for this one. Mhm.
That game's incredible.
Yeah.
That game literally never a single drop in performance ever, and that game is perfectly optimized, runs great, looks great, really fun to play on the Switch, and just like the perfect handheld game. Another
Mhm.
example is Mario Odyssey. Mario Odyssey is fucking incredible. It is
Mhm.
probably one of the best Mario games I've ever played. It's up there in the top 3 for me easily. That game's awesome. It's made on the Switch. They knew how to design it. They knew how to optimize it. They knew how to work with the hardware that they had. And that's all I'm asking for out of the Switch too. Like you'd be able to show off the new elements of the hardware. Maybe you got that full 1080p screen. Maybe you can even do, and I don't think this is possible. I don't think it's happening, but 4K while docked or whatever. But don't try to go above and beyond on the graphics elements. Just make sure you have a stable working system that's optimized and plays well, and you'd be able to get back those old heads like me that dropped the Switch. That was my point that I was trying to say. And there are a lot of us. I know a lot personally that dropped the Switch because of how bad the performance was.
Yeah, but you know what the thing is though, and I think this rings true with the two. And I have to eat, so I need to end this conversation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Um, but I think the fact of the matter is, the subset of the real kind of the people who probably care about this in the grand scheme of things is it's or in the percentage of Switch sales overall,
Oh,
probably not that
absolutely,
bad.
absolutely.
But
Because
the other thing though is to say these people just kind of like yourself, like once the good games come, they'll come
mhm.
back, and this is a cycle. It happens every generation. Like
Yeah,
they'll come back and they'll be like yeah, I gotta play this or I gotta play that, and then they'll be like fuck Nintendo, and then they'll leave them again until the next game that's like that. So I don't know. It's a cycle, just like everything. I think so.
yeah. I think you're right.
Mhm.
Like I mean I think the fact that I saw a new Mario Kart already literally made me be like, give me. So like I was already, and the fact that I already have the money saved back for a Switch too, up to $500 at
Yeah.
least. Because if it goes above that, no fucking way am I
Yeah,
buying
I don't think most people would be
it.
like that. I agree. But
uh,
yeah, Nintendo's good Nintendo, but gamers will always come back to the good games. So
yeah, you could sell someone off of just good games, and Mario Kart is just a good game. So
yeah, exactly. You can't go wrong.
yeah, I agree.
Hmm. All right. On that note, I'm gonna go eat. I'm
All
starving.
right, sounds
So
good. All
yeah, I'll see you, man. Have a good night.
right, peace out. See ya.